For those of you who keep up with computer technology trends, you're probably familiar with Larry Ellison, the CEO of software giant Oracle. Ex-Ellison protege Thomas Siebel, founder of Siebel Systems, says Ellison doesn't foster a lot of loyalty with the people that work with him. He says, quote, "People stay at Oracle because they are well paid and fear recrimination. Larry is a control freak. He has a knack for taking the best and the brightest, and then he tries to destroy them." And then there's David Rue. He calls himself a friend of Ellison and says, "Ellison is a silverback gorilla alpha male. He relishes confrontation and will only respond to a direct challenge. He is infamous for cavalier firings and has given Silicon Valley some of its toughest and best trained managers." Well, this is one way to deal with people. Let's look at some others. After Machiavelli in the 1500s came the scientific approach in the 1800s. It followed the Industrial Revolution. Scientists of this era believed that there was one best way to do a job, and you could figure it out through scientific methods and math formulas. Frederick Taylor was called the father of the scientific approach, and he studied people's body movements, the physical requirements for doing a job, the tools that needed to be used. He measured activities, he put on trial and error experiments to find the best person for any given job. What height should they be? How big should their fingers be to perform a job? He also studied how to make people work more efficiently to save time at each task. And if a person wasn't the most efficient at a job, then he or she could be replaced like a bad machinery part. The scientific method, when Elton Mayo conducted experiments at the Western Electric Company in Hawthorne, Illinois. He believed, like so many other scientists and businessmen, that people were like machinery and you could figure out how to make them run efficiently. He believed in the scientific method, and the study that he was conducting was meant to figure out how to scientifically improve work settings to improve worker efficiency. The first part of the experiment was to increase the brightness in a room. What do you think happened? People produced more. So they increased the light and people worked harder. The second part of the experiment was to reduce the light to prove that performance would decrease. But do you think this happened? No. They turned down the lights, and at first they thought the changes in light was influencing behavior, but what was it? The fact was that the workers were being watched, they were being given attention, and this made them produce more. It didn't matter whether the light was bright or there was hardly any light to work under. The fact that their supervisors were paying attention to them made them produce more. According to the scientific method, this shouldn't have happened. There's no scientific reasoning behind it. What happened were that psychological factors affected their levels of motivation and satisfaction. The behavioral movement expanded the role of the manager. Managers became more people-focused and offered incentives and sources of motivation to their employees. So what does management theory look like today? A lot of managers look to the systems theory approach, where every system has input, transformation, and output. And there's something called the ripple effect. In the 1960s, managers figured out that we don't work in a vacuum. Everything each person does affects others. Just think about the tragic events from September 11th. What were all the ripple effects from that? In thinking how this applies to the workplace, does it affect everyone that you work with when one employee is treated badly? Or how about late, leave early, pawn off for work on others, and all the supervisor says is, "Oh, that's okay." Does this affect others? Sure it does. And what sort of things start to happen? Well, if it gets bad enough, people start to leave. They look for work elsewhere. Your textbook talks about the contingency approach or situational theory. It's the idea that no two situations are exactly alike. With each event, you size up the situation and choose the best course of action. Just think about playing golf on a golf course. Are you going to use a putter every time for every stroke? No, you're going to look at the green and determine how far away the hole is, which club is going to get you the best results, right? This is the same approach used when you're dealing with people. Just think about different personality types. You're in your workplace and you have some bad news that you need to deliver to coworkers. Will you deliver the bad news to each person exactly the same way? You might have two coworkers, Bob and Tom. Bob, you know, is the type of person, he likes to just hear the facts. He does not want you to sugarcoat it. So you just tell him the bad news right off. Tom, on the other hand, may want you to tiptoe around it and offer him the news gently. Situational theory. You're not going to handle two people in the exact same way. You're going to size up the situation, size up the person, and determine the best course of action.